Good evening, everyone. I am Ravi Gupta. I am CEO and founder and editor-in-chief of Elets Technomedia. We are a 17-year-old organization who have been working on the field of science communications. And today, we are having the honor of having a webinar on the 49th Foundation Day of the Department of Science and Technology. And with us, we are honored to have Professor Ashutosh Sharma. He is the Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. I would like to welcome the respected Secretary, sir, on this program. Thank you for joining us, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. I'm very glad that so many of us are meeting here today.
Thanks, sir. So before we start the interaction, I'm going to give a small introduction about our speaker. Professor Ashutosh Sharma is the Secretary to the Government of India since January 2015. He is heading the Department of Science and Technology, DST. And Professor Ashutosh Sharma has received his PhD from the State University of New York at Buffalo, his MS from the Pennsylvania State University, and BTech from IIT Kanpur. Professor Ashutosh Sharma is an elected Fellow of the Indian National Science Academy, the Indian Academy of Sciences, the National Academy of Sciences India, and Indian National Academy of Engineering, the World Academy of Sciences, and the Asia Pacific Academy of Materials. And Professor Sharma is recipient of numerous honors and awards in his career. And Professor Sharma has research contributions which are highly interdisciplinary, spanning a wide spectrum in nanotechnology, thin polymer films, and several related areas.
Ravi, I think it's okay.
Yes, sir.
Not waste too much time.
I'm just like closing this. So with this, I am requesting the Honorable Secretary to give his brief opening remarks on the DST Foundation Day. Sir, welcome. Please.
Yes, Ravi. First of all, let me wish a very good afternoon to all the friends who are joining us here today, as well as a great thank you to all of them, because you see, DST is not only a government department, it is actually a highly distributed system which permeates all our stakeholders. Who are these stakeholders? These are students from school days, from college, PhD, postdocs, young scientists, younger scientists, senior scientists, people who work in R&D labs, people who work in universities, people who work in IITs, ISAs, people who work in NGOs that are using science and technology for societal service. People who are running a startup, or even people working in industry, or people working for science communication. So this is our entire stakeholder base. And basically DST works through each of these people. So DST is just not this little building, it's not just set of officers sitting there. Everything passes through reviewers. They pass through scientific committees. And so therefore, we all participate in this process of enhancing our science and technology capabilities in the country. And so I'm very glad today that many of us who form the stakeholder base of DST are here together celebrating its 49th Foundation Day, basically entering into the Golden Jubilee year. Some people call it 50th Foundation Day, some call it 49th. It doesn't really matter. It was formed, the foundation stone was laid on 3rd May 1971. And so this was a very good experiment by the government. It was formed along the model of National Science Foundation in the US, but it goes a step beyond. So while National Science Foundation or many entities of that kind are only into funding, DST also combines many other roles. For example, making all the government to government partnerships with international other countries, making policies for science and technology. And so therefore, it's a very holistic system. It's not just about funding. Of course, it has different arms for different kind of fundings. For example, Science and Engineering Research Board does funding in basic and applied sciences. Technology Development Board, it does funding of industries that commercialize indigenous technology and so on. So it's got many, many different arms for different functions. And so it's been a great platform for empowering our science and our scientists and our scientific institutions. So 50 years is a long time. And so, according to old Indian ways, 50 years is when you kind of start thinking about Vanprastha. But for organizations, for institutions, 50 is the age when you just start building a very strong foundation on which the whole structure is going to go up and is going to serve all of us for a long time to come. It's been a long, good journey, and it's always evolving. It's not static. As we learn more things, as the world changes, as the science changes, the way we do science changes, it has undergone such tremendous changes since I was doing PhD, for example. The whole landscape of science is so different now, and therefore we evolve in a dynamic way with times. We have had the good fortune of having a very committed stakeholder base. Almost, every scientist in the country over 4 to 5 generations has been benefited by the presence of DST. DST is a little bit like air because everywhere it's all pervasive, so we don't even know it is there. But I guarantee you that most of this, the news that you see on science and technology coming from the country, that DST would have been involved in some way behind that story, even if it is not acknowledged as such. So it is about building capabilities, it's about building capacity, it's about being future ready in terms of what our needs would be. And so all of that is DST. And I said, we have had good leadership. We have had Dr. M.G.K. Menon, one-time secretary. We have had Dr. Yashpal, one-time secretary. My predecessors have been Dr. Vijay Raghavan, now principal scientific advisor to the government. Before him, Dr. Rama Swami. Before him, Dr. Rama Murthy. Before him, Dr. Rama Rao. And, so it's a very, it's a system for scientists, by scientists, something very unique in the government. And so we are fully aware of what the needs and priorities of the country, the scientific community, in terms of research, development, and innovation are, and we constantly adjust to that. So that's a very, very brief introduction to DST.
Great, sir. Thanks for the introduction. We have a short video on the DST, and I'm requesting
the Department of Science and Technology under Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India, was established in May 1971 as a nodal department to promote research development activities in new areas of science and technology, and to organize, coordinate and promote scientific and technological activities in the country. It explores new horizons of science and technology with a special emphasis on research in emerging areas through its network of research institutions and laboratories. The Department of Science and Technology, or DST, coordinates and integrates areas of science and technology having cross-sectoral linkages with a number of institutions and departments by supporting their surveys, research design and development. Besides, the DST also undertakes work on futurology and provides support and grant and aids to scientific research institutions, scientific associations and bodies. The DST's investment in the nation's science and technology ecosystem has increased by over 70% in the last 5 years, which has resulted in some of the impactful activities such as empowering the young and reversing brain drain to brain gain, bringing the best of global science and scientists to India under the Vajra scheme, empowering women scientists under its KIRAN and Vigyan Jyoti schemes, popularizing science through schemes like Afsar, India Science, DD Science and the ISTI portal, boosting innovation and startup activity, launching missions on new and emerging areas, international connects. DST today offers 50,000 Inspire scholarships at the university level, 4,000 Inspire doctoral fellowships to young students and 700 Inspire faculty fellowships to young researchers. As India navigates its way through these troubled times, DST has been playing a key role in catalyzing urgent and goal-oriented research to ease the challenges posed by the coronavirus pandemic and even to find solutions in the form of vaccines. DST's team of scientists and researchers lead the nation's foray into the cutting-edge scientific research, its validation and its effective outreach and make this country healthy and thriving once again.
Sir, my first question to you is to talk about what are the key initiatives of the DST during the last 5 years.
Okay. First, let me correct a factual error in the clip. So our budget, fortunately, has increased over 100% in the last 5-6 years, not 70% as was shown there. So this is unprecedented. And so I'm very, very happy to share that thing with you. And so what that means is that it allowed us to strengthen the basic foundational services of DST. For example, funding basic research, funding applied research in sciences. At the same time, we were able to start new programs, and the new programs which make for a more holistic science, technology, and innovation system. And I would come to that in a moment. Let me also say that DST, it funds, it supports everything, all areas from atoms to astrophysics and everything in between. The only criterion is the quality, relevance, and competitiveness. So therefore, based on these kind of criteria, we are agnostic to the area. We are not focused only on one sector. We are not focused only on one compartment of knowledge. So now, of course, there have been several new programs, but we must understand the thinking and genesis behind these programs. Otherwise, we just think, well, it's something random which happens. It's not like that. It's not, nothing is random. So it is, for example, what is our need in basic sciences? One of our needs is to move away from incremental to be more profound, to be more creative in our scientific pursuits. Because, India already is producing, is already number 3 in the world in terms of number of scientific publications, which means we are quantitatively doing good. Now it's time that we take risk, and then we take risk in doing our science, and therefore do more quality science, more impactful science. And so because of that, we started a new program called SUPRA through Science and Engineering Research Board, which says, look, take risk, do something big. If you fail, it is okay, right? But it has to be something well thought of. It's not some stupid risk, but it's a calculated risk. And we encourage people to work in an area which is not incremental, which may lead to profound new insights and impacts if we become successful. See, so other thing is, when we think about applied science, then we think about, of course, the quality, the creativity, but we also think about the relevance of that science. So it's, sometimes research is done by saying, look, oh, such and such big university in the world is working in this area, publishing papers, so why not I also do it, right? But if we think more about what is the relevance of it, because applied science finally means that it must translate in terms of technology. It may even go to the market. it may connect with the startups, it may connect with the industry. So keeping all of that in mind, we also need to strengthen our innovation ecosystem. And so innovation ecosystem, just last 5 years, we have been able to double, DST has been able to double the innovation ecosystem in the country. In 5 years, they did what was done in last 50 years before that. What that means, for example, in terms of incubators, the number of incubators is more than doubled. In terms of number of startups, more than doubled. But even more important, see, innovation is not a single event. It's like a chain. So every part of that chain has to be equally strong, because a chain is only as strong as the weakest link. So we looked at all the links of innovation. So you have to scout for people, you have to mentor them, you have to motivate them, they have to make a business plan. After that, they need to do prototyping. So there should be support available for all of these, even pre-incubation activities. Once you get into incubation, then you need seed money, you need good business plans, you need connectivity, you need networking, and then finally you need exit plans and so on. So all of these things were incorporated in a new scheme called Nidhi. So Nidhi is basically end-to-end plan for startups, for innovation, which means from cradle to grave plan, but not grave. I hope that this is successful and they graduate in the real world with flying colors. And so all of that is being done under that program. Even more important, you see today, India is number 3 in terms of number of tech startups. Different numbers are quoted, but maybe 20,000, 25,000, 15,000, something like that, right? But, we can't be satisfied with that. It's a country of 1.3 billion people. So which means that we need to put a zero in front of it very quickly, maybe 2 zeros, because now we have demographic dividend, a lot of young educated people with energy and ideas. This window of opportunity will not remain open forever. Going another 30, 35 years, India will start having the same aging population as elsewhere. So here's a huge opportunity that we need to catch. And so who are the future entrepreneurs, innovators of tomorrow? These are our young school children, because school curriculum doesn't teach anything about, being independent, being critical, being innovative, and so on. So we introduced this new program called Manak, which reaches out to 5 lakh schools. We have an ideas competition. So we get 1 million top ideas from 5 lakh schools, 10 lakh ideas from 5 lakh schools. Then in any of the languages of the country. And then people go through those ideas and select the top 100,000 ideas. Each of these ideas gets 10,000 rupees each. Therefore, the whole the support given to students from school, it aggregates to 100 crores per year. With this 10,000 rupees to each student, they convert idea into a prototype by some mentoring, workshop facilities, and so on. Then they compete on district level, state level, national level, and their motivation hugely increases. So this is a pipeline of the future. This is to prepare actually our young people for the challenges of innovation, of entrepreneurship, on the power of ideas, right? And so these are the things which are happening in innovation space. Then we realized that after PhD, there are very few postdoctoral positions available in the country. So therefore, there is no systematic one scheme. We started a thing called National Postdoctoral Scheme. Already about 3,000 postdocs have been supported under that in just last 3 years. So it's a very good number going beyond PhD, because one may not get a job immediately after PhD. We don't want to lose these people, right? Either go somewhere or, lose interest and take up some other kind of job. So as much as possible, they're given more training, more experience, so that they can get the right kind of research or academic job or whatever industry job that they're looking for. Now, another thing about innovation and connecting academia with industry, we know that this has been historically a weak link. So there are many different things that need to be done to do that. One of the things that started last year is to create what is called Sathi centers. Now, these Sathi centers, each at a cost of 125 crores, Three were made last year, and we'll go up to 15, 20 of these centers across the country. Each of these centers houses the equipment that MSMEs need, that for rapid prototyping our industry needs, or our startups need, but they are not easily available. They may be there somewhere in some campus, but not easily accessible in a transparent way. So therefore, 80% of the time on these machines, on these equipment, would be devoted to industry, to MSMEs, and to startups in a very transparent manner. This is basically to have greater connect with the industry. Look, one of the weaknesses of our scientific ecosystem is, while we are very good at generating new knowledge, scientific knowledge, we are not equally good at consuming it. And so that weakness is not necessarily in academia. Okay, some part of it is because I may be happy doing my research and publishing it and forget all about it later. I mean, I don't have the time to push it actually to explore where it is going to go. And I may not have had the direction, a very clear direction to begin with about these things. But it's equally the responsibility of industry to reach out and to pull ideas from there. So I often, put it this way with the examples of Saraswati and Lakshmi. They have to work together. I mean, it's not because we cannot say, look, one is not equally important, because it's about knowledge, ecosystem, it's about sustainability of knowledge. So we need resources to generate knowledge, but we also need to therefore generate new resources which can support generation of new knowledge. And so industry has to be an equal, a strong partner in all of this. And as our country makes transition to knowledge economy, this becomes very important, that industry puts in stuff and it pulls knowledge in a big way. So we have been trying to connect actually startups with established industry in that. So the industry can actually give early direction to startups, and startups is the twilight zone between the academia and industry. So they understand the language of both, and they can be a very good medium to take stuff from there. So there are many things that are done. Other thing is that we have to be future ready. The nation as a whole, now in fact this pandemic has shown us, right? So the threats of the future are of very high order, okay, unprecedented, the things, that kind of stuff we have never seen before. What are these challenges of the future? Let me just point out two or three of them, the overarching ones, and we have to be ready for them. And DST has been working in that direction to be ready for them, to make our scientists and scientific institutions ready for them. So let me say the first one, sustainable development, in which technology plays a huge, extraordinary role in making us prepared for sustainable development. You see, sustainable development could be an oxymoron, because there is a conflict between sustainability and development. And how do you balance these two seemingly conflicting things? One of the major things, one of the major passageways is through science and technology. So all of us have to start thinking, not just start thinking, we have to start doing a lot of things. For example, there are new programs related to clean energy, related to electric mobility. There's a huge new program being built up now, which is related to energy storage and renewable energy, right? And similarly in water, in agriculture, we look at the nexus between different sectors. For example, water and agriculture cannot be considered in isolation with each other, right? Because 75% water is used in agriculture. So therefore, it's about working out of silos, is doing multidisciplinary work. And all that's being encouraged through different schemes. It's not only about tool-centric science, which was very popular when I was doing PhD, but the world has changed. Now it's more about problem-centric science. So whatever tools I need for it, I should get. I should be interdisciplinary. I should collaborate. So the earlier model of doing science is competition, because it's individual-driven science. Individual-driven science is very good. It has a role. It is driven by the brilliance of the individual scientist. But often it cannot solve a large-scale problem. And so therefore we need both. It is not a zero-sum game. It's not like, oh, if you do problem-centric, then you are not doing the tool-centric. We should strengthen both of them. But if one of them is missing, then we should bring that in. And also about being future ready as a sustainable development, another big challenge on the horizon is about the rise of intelligent machines. Now we all know artificial intelligence, machine learning, industry 4.0, deep learning, robotics, autonomous vehicles, no matter what you call them, is about the convergence of technologies. So just look at what is the thing called cyber physical system. Cyber physical system is an convergence, is an integration of communication, of computing, of decision making, on perception and action. So we started a national mission on cyber physical systems last year at a new budget line approved by the cabinet of 3,660 crores. And this is already establishing 25 hubs across the country. And these hubs have a very interesting architecture and structure and processes. Basically, it's not about doing new science, but also the processes of doing that new science, which is equally important. So basically what we have done is that we have totally empowered the hubs to be able to make every decision, whether it is financial, whether it is administrative, where the money is going to be spent. We must have the big picture and we should achieve it. Now the micro management has to be done by the scientists themselves. So therefore we totally empower people who are actually working on it. Other very interesting thing is that we often say, look, this project is doing basic R&D, this project is doing technology, this project is doing startups. That's not the right way to do it. Every hub is actually integrated from the knowledge generation to knowledge consumption, which means that it has basic knowledge generation. It also has technology development. It also has an incubator with the startups. It also has a research park, which is the front end connecting with the industry. So all of that, and it has international connects, it has industry connects. We want industry to be equal partners in each of these hubs. So essentially, we must encourage everybody to do what they are best at doing. But at the same time, bring in integration in this form, and then our stuff is going to be really successful. Another mission which has been announced in the last budget is quantum technologies worth 8,000 crores. So therefore, this is about being future ready. Together with electric mobility, together with renewable energy, together with supercomputing mission. Supercomputing mission is another interesting example of being future ready. I mean, in a sense, we have already been a little bit late on that, but now the outcome is looking rather interesting at this point, because when the mission was envisaged, they said that we would import a lot of supercomputers. But meanwhile, one figured that a lot of this stuff actually can be done in India. And the first 3 supercomputers have been assembled in India. Now they're going to be even chip level design is going to be done in India, and a whole lot of other manufacturing other than the chip will be done in India. So therefore, it's a new chapter in our supercomputing mission. The other thing which are happening is in terms of policies, which are very important. We need now a new policy for science, technology, and innovation, which is under works, and it should be ready by the end of this year, because a lot of stakeholder consultations and so on are being done. Another very interesting policy that was made recently is called scientific social responsibility. So this should be ready soon. Now, I just want to dispel some misconceptions that people have about this, because when you hear the word scientific social responsibility, scientist in me says, no, well, keep me away from this. I'm just happy doing my science. Don't bring all this socialist stuff with me. I'm not going to change my research. It's not about changing the direction of your research, not at all. It has no relation to the research that one does or its contents. It's very simply, you see, our scientific institutions and our scientists, we have a lot of things at our disposal. It's an infrastructure, it is knowledge, it is information, it is human resources. Using all of this, if I can reach out to different, different stakeholders in the society at large, if I can help them, let's say me as a professor talking to some MSME person, right? Maybe pro bono for some time and saying, look, I can, help you solve this problem. Or we get all the school children to lecture or bring them to our lab and motivate them. Whole lot of things like that. Or do science communication, right? So all of that counts as scientific social responsibility. And this actually, it empowers the science, because these are the people who are going to support science tomorrow. It empowers our scientific institutions, it empowers everybody in the process. Other thing that we did, we realized that scientific communication is very poor in the country, because there are very few science journalists or reporters. And so therefore, we want actually more PhD students and postdocs and scientists themselves to write more science stories, and started a new program for that called Avsar, which had a tremendous response. First year itself, we got about 5,000 science stories written by PhD students, right? And so this is great. It's not only about the science story. It is about the students would benefit by writing such a story, right? Because PhD may be very narrowly focused, but once you have to write a popular science story, then you have to know how your science connects with the rest of the world, right? With the larger concerns of science and society and good writing skills. So what I'm basically trying to say is, it's not about new schemes. There are dozens of new schemes, but they have a logic. So therefore, we look at where the weaknesses are, what kind of scheme would plug those weaknesses, and therefore all the schemes are designed in such a way, in terms of content, in terms of area, but also in terms of processes and structure of these schemes, that they should have right delivery, right, timely delivery, and the outcome and output should be what we expect from that scheme. So all of that is taken into account while working on new schemes. Like I said, there are very many of them. I'll just give one more example and conclude on this part, which is that with our Survey of India. Survey of India is an organization which is scientific organization, 250 years old 2 years ago, right? One of the oldest scientific organizations in the country, right? And it's with DST. And so the mandate is that we should do, do mapping and stuff, because you see, going forward in the future, digital maps, 3D digital maps with the right kind of accuracy and resolution are absolute necessary for any kind of developmental needs, for any kind of planning, for any kind of governance or what have you. And in fact, it's shown in the time of COVID-19. So now they start adopting all the modern technologies of surveying. Even just 5 years ago, they used to drag chains on the ground, foot soldiers and theodolite and all this stuff, right? No longer. So he said, look, now we adopt the modern means of surveying and mapping, which is fly drones with all kind of sensors, and then, do a whole lot of other processing over here. Now they are doing this. They started this work in 3 states, and with an accuracy of maybe even 5 centimeter where it is required. So these 3D digital maps are becoming available. And so that's a huge service for our developmental needs, going to panchayat, down to panchayat level.
So
yeah,
this is a massive range of work which you have described, from startups to the surveying to the collaborations between industry and academia, to so many levels, from schools to colleges to higher education to government policy, whatnot. Mm-hmm. So thanks for explaining all the range of initiatives. My next question is about the COVID-19 situation. This situation is affecting the whole globe, affecting the country, is like disrupting the whole ecosystem. So first question in this regard is that how did DST and its institutions handle the COVID situation in terms of its overall function?
Ravi, it was very heartening to see as to how spontaneously scientists and scientific institutions responded to this crisis. And despite many constraints, because there are supply chain constraints, there are a whole lot of lockdown, everything, right? But despite all that, the enthusiasm was tremendous. And in fact, there have been so many success stories. I'll come to that in a moment. In DST, because like I said, DST does everything. So there were 11 different fronts on which we could initiate action for COVID-19. So these fronts are, for example, funding, basic research, um, biomarkers for the disease, then understanding the causes of disease, modeling it, and all of that, basic research. Then for those startups which are ready with a product, to support them going for manufacturing. Then for those companies which have a product but need to scale up, right? So say if you are making 10,000 kits today, you want to make 1 lakh per day, then we provide based on that tried and trusted product support to these companies. At the same time, Survey of India started this mapping, which is very good for looking at like where are the resources, how do we connect people with the resources, and so on. Then this another program in which NGOs are empowered to take the information and things like mask and disinfectant to people at large, because it's all about people's participation, right? So this has many dimensions. The COVID-19 is a multi-dimensional problem. So therefore, we must have multiple fronts looking at each of these needs in terms of in terms of priorities as well. So then there's about science communication, the kind that we are doing now, that Vigyan Prasar together with NCSTC and DST, they are making lots of programs. In fact, there's a capsule every day about updating information on COVID-19, which is put on India Science Internet TV channel. This is a good resource. I want everybody to access it. And so therefore, there are a lot of communication needs which are being addressed. National Innovation Foundation, a part of DST, they are actually reaching out to people to get their new ideas. So, because not all ideas come from PhD students, you see, they also come from farmers. They come from people living in small cities, rural areas, women, children, everybody, right? So idea is that, of course, we give them information, but we should also seek information from them. Maybe there are some ideas that we are overlooking, some solutions to the problems, right? So we are doing that. TIFAC, which is another think tank of DST, they are coming up with a white paper. We said, look, how do we strengthen our economy right after the lockdown period, or as we go to a gradual lifting of lockdown. So our major challenge actually is to get back on high growth rate part, right? And how technology actually would make that possible. So there is work going on that. We also had, we are looking at, even traditional wisdom, traditional practices of how to strengthen immunity, how to, provide support for respiratory illnesses, how to reduce stress. So all of that, should be scientifically investigated and understood. Look, for example, yoga and meditation, we must know clearly what works, what does not work, under what conditions it works. And all of that would happen if we scientifically, using the modern tools of science, investigate their problems, which are relevant in the age today. And finally, the international connects that we have, working with American scientists, working with different scientists, because now our problems are very shared, right? So all these different fronts are working together, plus several of our autonomous institutions. For example, the Sri Chitra Institute of Medical Science and Technology in Thiruvananthapuram, they have come up with over 15 different products just in 1 month time, which are relevant for COVID-19. And about 10 of them have already gone for manufacturing to the industry. So, for example, a completely new way of testing for the virus, which may be 10 times faster and 10 times cheaper. not based on antibody testing, but completely something parallel to PCR. Is a called LAMP platform. At the same time, there's so many innovations that came up so fast. I will not have the time actually to talk about all of them. So what I want to say basically, all of that happened because there was a clear direction, that there was a perceived, clear and present problem, and this was something that was shared, right? Now, based on all the infrastructure that we have, all the deep scientific knowledge that we have, and people's dedication, commitment to this cause, that is what is making it possible. Now, there are lessons in it for the future as well. As you can clearly see, if we can see the direction of the problem, at least in applied sciences, if we hook up with a company from the beginning, and many of these products actually were developed together with a company. Because you see, a scientist can say, look, I want this thing to happen. Now, what kind of electronics has to go in there to make that possible? If as a scientist I had to do that, it would take me 1 year, right? But if I reach out to this company, which is actually in, let's say, biomedical devices or whatever devices, then we just say, look, you engineers, you deliver this, and it will get done, right? So the lessons is that once we are committed to a common cause, right, and once we have accountability for that cause, because I feel involved in it, and that there's a clear direction, and that we know that there's a need. If all of that click together, then it's going to happen. And it's going to happen with the speed. It is going to happen with creativity, everything which we have there. So we would give it our best shot. So this could be a kind of new normal going forward in the future. All the lessons that we have learned from it. Just imagine all of us now, several thousand of us are meeting together on this platform, right? In the good old days, people used to travel a lot. It's not so easy, spend a lot of time, spend a lot of money. We learned within last 1 month, I had done more than 100 conferences like this, from 10 to 100 people, 1,000 people in each of these conferences, right? So imagine that a whole lot of things could be done like that. And we should evolve new technologies that would make it possible for us to be more efficient. And I'll just give you an example. So we have a program with Israel worth $40 million to co-develop technologies. First year, Israeli team, 10 people came here. Second year, 10 people from here went there. 4 days and lakhs of rupees. Third year, now we did it like this. And in 2 hours is done, right? And it was no less in terms of outcomes, right? So as long as we can prepare well for these meetings, they are going to be equally or even more effective in terms of doing our business. I have no doubt about it at all. See, anyway, our society, the whole globe has been moving in the direction of remote technologies, right? And now the virus is going to give it just a big push, which was kind of required. This is not to say that we are social creature. I'm not minimizing that aspect at all. I'm just saying for certain kind of work that could be done more efficiently, right? Every time a big crisis happens, every time there is a big challenge, there is an equally big opportunity that rises from there. We must seize that opportunity with both the hands, with very strongly. The last pandemic, for example, is Spanish flu, 100 years ago, or in the pandemics of 19th century. What was the big thing? What was the big change that they made in the society? Well, they came to industrial pressure, rise of industry, rise of industrial era, where people were crowding, the things were not hygienic, and so there may be cholera, there may be different things, right? But after that, you see, there were a lot of new inventions, innovations in terms of hygiene. The bathrooms, the toilets of today that we see, they all actually arose at that time. And now it becomes a new normal. So I'm sure that there will be a lot of things that we would learn, starting from Namaste. I saw it a month and a half ago, right?
Yeah.
And where did we learn it? Is there some Spanish guest who had come to meet us, and they were doing Namaste. They didn't want to shake any hands, nothing, right? So I'm sure that there are cultural aspects, there are societal aspects, there are technology aspects, there are aspects of doing every kind of work in our daily life and our work, right? That would become the new normal. And there are many, many good things that would happen going forward with this.
Thanks, sir. I think given that what has COVID-19 impacted on the science and technology sector, and what is the new emerging areas that we have to look at in terms of scientific research. The next question is about what is your vision and the future plans for DST, and how are you going to achieve it?
Yeah, so while you're asking this question now, unfortunately, I already answered it.
Yes.
Okay, so I didn't know that you're going to ask me this question now.
Yeah.
You see, the future plans, as we said, we have to be totally future ready. Look at the
Yes.
challenges of climate change. Of course, that this is not a national problem, but each nation has to contribute to it. You see, the virus would come and go, but the climate change is a slow thing, right? It's not like this. When you have a little frog in a pan which is heated very slowly, it does not recognize the danger until it is too late, right? So this is so about the slow changes. Nobody pays them any attention. But when things happen, this would be far, far greater than 10 viruses put together. So we have to be ready for it now. So a lot of things are happening there. We have to be ready for sustainable development goals. We have to be ready for the rise of intelligent machines. You see, in every science and technology, there is also a local angle. So while globally, the rise of intelligent machines and Industry 4.0 is in response to there being not enough young people, right? So if you want to grow economically, then you have to grow by adding more machines that can do the job of people. Now, don't forget, the problem of India, the challenge of India is not identical to that. We have a lot of young people. So therefore, while we may use the same technology or we may evolve a new technology, it must meet our challenges squarely and not actually increase them in any way, right?
Yes.
So how is that to be done? Well, we have to use these technologies related to artificial intelligence and so on to create new markets, to create new opportunities, to create new skills which do not exist now, to create a new base for knowledge generation and knowledge consumption without displacing a whole lot of people who are doing this work, create new opportunities. This requires deep thinking. It is not simply copying or importing somebody's technology, which is going to happen. But so therefore, our schemes, our thinking must be tuned to our needs. And so this is about the future. The second aspect I said, this is about the areas, sectors, for example, but also our processes and structure, our speed, our collaborative networks, all of that, and our connect with the industry, and also increasing the profound nature of our research, moving away from the incremental. These are all the things on the future horizon. And I'm sure there's no really dispute about all of this. I think everybody agrees more or less on these things. How do we improve the quality of our research and so on? How do we encourage our students to be more questioning, to be more creative, to be more risk taking, right? And not only train them only for academic jobs, we have to train a whole bulk of them also for industrial jobs and so on. So all of these are challenges which are very clear going in the future. And we have to work together. It's not only about DST. Remember when I opened, I said DST is not just a government department, it's all of us, right? Because we all stakeholders in it. We all participate in it. So our committees, our referees, our everybody has to be on the same page, right? The idea is that we must empower, we must strengthen, we must remove weaknesses wherever they are ruthlessly. Okay, so it's not about just sticking on, hanging on to what we did 50 years ago or 30 years ago. We have to empower more younger scientists, recognize their leadership at an early age. There are examples of new schemes in that direction, but we don't have time to talk about that. You see, mostly in Oriental cultures, is the age that matters. And so historically we say because a man has white hair, he is wiser. It doesn't work like that in science. Okay. So therefore, of course, with age comes experience, but also we must marry the energy and enthusiasm of the young with the experience of the older scientist, right? So there is advantage in both of them, right? But we must recognize and bring out the leadership of younger people more and more. And this is very, very necessary, you know. So to break structures which do not recognize and reward younger scientists is a big danger. And I'm sure that we all understand that very clearly. And this I remember very well because I remember in one of the committees, national committees, I was very young when I was part of that, and I was forcefully arguing for something there. And one of my older colleagues, I have high respect for him, he said, we don't take anybody below 50 years of age very seriously, right? He said that jokingly, no doubt, but you see, there sometimes is a prevalent view, and that's not correct, right? So there are many challenges going ahead, really, really huge challenges, but those challenges have to be addressed uh, by community as a whole. And DST would ever be an equal partner in that. I can assure you that we all, look, I'm always saying when I'm talking to my younger friends, I tell them always one thing, that there are three ways of solving a problem. Three ways of solving a problem are called in Hindi, Jugaad, Dhanda, and Panga. The Jugaad is a way to solve problem by hook or by crook very quickly, maybe not optimally. Now, at the time of a virus, many of the solutions may have to be like that. Okay, but it does not mean they will survive after 5 years because better solutions would be found, right? The dhanda is the continuity, slow way of doing things, but is stable. So a lot of processes in society are based on dhanda, which means I will grow 5% next year, I'll grow 2% next year, I will make incremental changes. And the panga is the disruptive changes. So sometimes some part of our business has to be disruptive changes, right? Even though not everybody is happy with them, not everybody agrees with them, but the point is, this is the hardest way to change because, it's always because people, I am used to doing things in a certain way. But once, Panga succeeds, then it's the best way to do that. And we need harmony between these three ways of change. I'm not advocating anarchy. I'm not advocating, revolution. What I'm saying is a balance between these three things, Jugaad, Dhanda, and Panga, to go forward. And everything that we do, whether it's new schemes, whether it is that, there is some continuity and stability. There is also solving problems that need to be solved quickly, and at the same time, trying out new things, totally new things. And if they succeed, you keep them. If they don't succeed, you trash them. So it is ever a dynamic world, dynamically evolving world, and we must be part of that change.
Sir, there are more than 170 questions here and more than 1,000 like chats people are asking and stuff like that. And so there is like a scarcity of time. So if you permit, like I have like if you have, I know that time is limited and like you can't see 170 questions in a minute or two.
Actually, this kind of media is not a good platform for real discussion.
Exactly.
It's basically a monologue. I don't like monologue, but I can't keep it, right? Actually, a good question, one good question, it requires several days of deliberation.
Exactly.
Right? So, it's a limitation that we have in this medium. But anyway, go ahead, shoot.
So, there is a question around that one of the reasons that Indian higher education institutions are lower in the global ranking is because of the quality of the scientific research, the research papers being published, and the quality, like someone has asked. So your views?
Yeah, so I would first of all like to dispel some myths. It's
Yes.
not entirely, it's not because of the quality of research. Let me also say many of these global rankings, they are not totally transparent. In fact, you can read a lot of articles on this. They are kind of biased in some ways, but at the same time, I agree that we should not just blame that and rationalize it. So while there are weaknesses there, we should plug our weaknesses. But at the same time, let me also tell you, for example, our IITs, many of them, IISc, they come in many top slots. But remember that an IIT cannot be compared to a university because it's not a university. It has to be compared with a school of engineering in a university in some other country. And if you, in fact, if you look at those rankings in terms of, let's say, school of engineering rankings,
Sure.
IITs fare very well. And remember, given all our constraints, many of these things, they take into account the presence of foreign teachers and foreign students in your university. Now, this is not a problem of science. This is a problem of the whole society. If we are not getting a large number of foreigners to study here, right? So that is not a scientific weakness, but those things factor in our ranking frameworks, right? So that is okay. So ranking framework is one aspect, but I would not agree that this is because we have low quality. We need to improve quality. I'm not saying that. Okay, so please don't take it also that this is an excuse for no. Certainly, we need to improve our quality, and I said that repeatedly for this talk. That one of the concerns in terms of our research being more profound, more risky, more creative, more out of box, and all of that would improve the quality. And also, don't forget the relevance. See, relevant for their other stakeholders in the society, right? If we are not looking at the relevance angle, our quality can never be very great, right? Because it's just a rehash of what other people are doing, and we have to be leaders rather than the followers, right? So that confidence, you see, we don't lack intelligence. I have discussed this so many times with my younger friends. We don't lack intelligence. We don't lack training. We don't lack confidence. And our, some of our education does not actually reward us for these quantities like creativity, out of box thinking, being a leader, taking risk. If I do all of that, I will fail all the exams, isn't it? So therefore, we don't have the right reward mechanism for this. And so once we are brainwashed into this, by the time I become a researcher, it may be too late for me to actually change in a very fundamental way, right? So this confidence, it is a job of every mentor, every scientist to bring in that confidence in our next generation. And I think it's happening more and more. People are more, saying, look, yeah, I'm as good as somewhere else, and I can do it, right? And so it's not about ranking, and it's not about we need to improve the quality, and it's happening, right? It's happening, and we need to do more, but don't take rankings as the only yardstick of our research. And so
Sir,
and
if you
also let
allow,
me add, by the way, this
yes,
nature index, they
yes.
ranked, for example, one of DST institutions, Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research in Bangalore, at number 7 in the world in terms of quality of research. So what it basically means, we can do it. If they can do it, I'm no different. I can do it. Similarly, Indian Association for Cultivation of Science in Calcutta, another DST institution, they've also ranked in top 10 in one of the areas of science in terms of quality of their research. So since we are talking
Yes.
quality, we can maintain good quality and is doable.
So another question will be, someone has raised is that while the lot of funding for research goes to the IITs, there are many other institutions which are underfunded. So there is a bias towards IIT. So your views on
There's
it?
a, you see, no, I totally understand this, and I totally agree that not as much funding goes especially to state universities as other places. Now we must understand as to why that happens. So this is because all the processes are competitive, and in fact they are not judged by DST. No officer in DST makes the judgment, right? Whether we should fund the state university or IIT or who. So it's a competitive process. And in fact, the proposals are judged by only the scientists in that particular area, right? So now, I mean, see, so this is actually, it's a fact. And therefore, it is an argument for improving, for strengthening our university system. I do totally agree with it, right? So now as far as DST is concerned, because there is a certain amount of resources, and those resources are distributed based on relevance, quality, competitiveness, as judged by the peers of that scientist, right? So no, the government doesn't play any role in it. Often I am accused, often I am abused, saying, look, why my project was not funded, right? Okay, so I mean, this is how it is the world over, by the way. That it's all competitive funding. And for example, National Science Foundation in the US, today they may be funding fewer than 15% of the projects which are submitted, right? So it is like that globally. Not everybody can be funded. And so therefore now, so having said that, our state university system needs to be strengthened in terms of their research vision, in terms of their research emphasis, right? Now it has happened because of the culture that lot of, there are lots of good people, lots of good scientists there that I know. There are pockets of excellence and so on. So how do we actually bring them out? Okay, and how did it become a more pervasive culture in terms of research? Because it's the excellence that begets excellence. If my neighbor is sleeping all the time, I'll not be greatly motivated actually to do anything, right? But once I'm in this competition, right? If there's a lot of politics, then I cannot do good science, and I would be disheartened. So there a very fundamental turning around in the culture is absolutely required. Okay, and of course the government, either through UGC or MHRD or wherever, have to be totally committed for this change. And I know this is happening in the new education policy.
Sir, I will just ask one last question, which has been raised by the audience, that alignment of our scientific research in the many of the universities towards the national missions like Ganga, cleaning of rivers, the housing for all mission, and several other like government of India missions which are oriented towards citizens. So instead of someone has asked that research for the sake of research, can it be more applied towards the citizen benefits? If you can.
Yeah, we did touch upon this. Now the point is this: look, if you are doing fundamental, basic research, it has to be profound and it must have quality. The relevance to society does not directly enter into it. Okay, we often confuse these things, right? If I'm working on string theory and I'm trying to figure out the origin of universe and the God particle, right? It may have no immediate connect with the society, and we understand that, and we accept that, right? That there are certain things which are so deep and so fundamental, they have to be profound. So there, what matters is how disruptive, how profound I am in my approach, how creative. But as you said about applied research, of course, that there is a spectrum of what is called applied research, and a whole lot of research today in today's world is of that kind, right? Which means it is centered on problem solving. It is not centered on a discipline. It's not centered on chemistry, physics, mathematics, biology, chemical engineering, whatever. It is a combination of all those tools to solve a problem. Now, that has been a bit of weakness. It has been a weakness because historically we have operated as individual scientists, not looking to solve big problems. It remains a problem because even our reward and award structure in academia, in the society, is
Hmm.
very greatly focused only on certain kind of activities in science. So therefore, it is true that we do need better connect with problem solving. And as there are more opportunities, like for example, the example of virus, how did that come about? So this is an opportunity for us to learn a lot of things and saying, look, all of us are in it together. If we cannot clean Ganga, I would be a little bit less as a scientist, right? Because it's not a problem only of one individual, right? If we cannot take care of environment, we cannot take care of this or that, then I am little bit diminished as a scientist. So in a sense that our self has to become little bit bigger. And this, even if I'm a selfish person, I want my neighborhood to be clean, right? So as a scientist, if I can contribute to that particular job, then that there's some part of it. I'm not saying everything. All I'm saying is the people who can actually work in that area in a strong way ought to do it. And and also the way we train people is very important, that the next generation understands that there are many different ways of doing science. There are many different ways of finding fulfillment as a scientist. This is very important because the dominant model has been for a long time that the fulfillment of a scientist is for him or her to do some work in his or her lab and publish those, and those published papers are read and recognized by a peer community, which usually is very narrow. So there may be 10 more people who may read that, even though it's a lot of effort which has gone into it for a very long time, total dedication, right? And a lot of effort and resources have gone into it. However, if it is very incremental work, sometimes I ask myself, and I've done a whole lot of that myself. So I'm not saying, I'm in it together with everybody else, right? So I've often questioned what happened if I did not publish that paper? Would it have changed anything at all for anybody, right? Anyway, you get your promotion as professor or scientist, somebody or whatever, get some awards. Why should actually I be keep pushing in that direction, right? There has to be, it may be by the force of habit, but what I'm saying, or conditioning, or I don't really know what else to do, right? But I think it is possible to bring in some of that change, and also to communicate that change to people that I mentor, right? Because they are, in fact, I said in a conference that we have often regarded PhD training as paper factories for us. This is a very, I know I'm not sugarcoating this, okay, because I have been involved in that process myself, right? So I understand that, and I understand that the damage that it does. While we maybe feel competitive in one particular way globally, we say, hey, I also published in this and that journal, right? And all that, and then I get recognition from my peers based on that. But is that the only thing that we can do in science? Of course we should do that, but let's not assume that this is 100% the reason for doing science, because it is not.
Uh, Great answer. And I think we can conclude here if you all agree. And I would like to thank Professor Ashutosh Sharma for a very comprehensive overview of the history of DST, what is DST doing recently, last 5 years, how it has dramatically changed under its guidance, and what is the vision for next 5 years. Professor Ashutosh Sharma has very well explained, and he's also talked about the various challenges for the Indian scientific community and the opportunities in the post COVID-19 era. in the field of scientific research. So I would like to thank you, Professor Sharma, and I will request you to give your concluding lines.
Okay, well, my concluding thing is that I'm very grateful. I'm very happy with all the friends who could join us today here on a Sunday evening. And we have talked as friends. I have hidden nothing. I have said everything I wanted to say, right? So just like, two friends sitting and talking, we don't always have to agree with everything that is said, that we just think some more about these things and come to our own conclusion about these things. We want to be independent thinkers, critical thinkers, right? Not, and that's very important for science. And I just stopped with a quote about the science. So it was Gautama Buddha 2,500 years ago said that believe nothing and nobody, no matter if I said it, unless it squares with your own reason and logic and experience and common sense, right? So this is the mantra for doing good science, right? In fact, I've seen that when I knew less about a particular area of science, I could do better work in that. I could do more creative work, new work in that area, because I was not totally brainwashed and conditioned by what other people thought. But you can examine the situation yourself. You may be wrong, of course, right? But that is okay. You take the risk, you be wrong, you fail. We hate failure in life because we have been trained actually always to pass with flying colors, right? And it's a big stigma to fail. But we cannot do good science unless we take the risk, which is worth taking, and fail. One of my favorite authors in high school said, it's better to have loved and lost than not to have loved at all. It's the same with science. It's same with everything in life. Okay, if we have not rolled up our sleeves and made a plunge, we will never know if we can swim or cannot swim, right? Some will sink, which is okay, right? And I don't mean that they would be dead. Some would sink and people would rescue them in time. But anyway, this is something that we should do. Now, I want to wish all the friends who could join us a very happy, healthy, creative, fulfilling, and safe time ahead. We'll all come out of it stronger than when we went in. I have no doubt about it at all. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you and namaskar to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.